Welcome to Inner Light. I'm your host, Shreya. Today's conversation welcomes Wanda Thibodeaux, a voice whose creative expression carries the depth of a calling far beyond aesthetic beauty. She steps into the world not just as a writer or musician, but as an artist prophet, someone who dares to deliver spiritual truth in a landscape that often craves the comfortable over the confrontational. In this episode, we unravel what it truly means to create with conviction, to speak beyond the surface, and to carry a message that shapes soul rather than trends. Welcome, Amanda. I'm honored to have you on my show.
Well, thank you. It's a very much a privilege to be here. Thank you.
And Wanda, you describe yourself as an artist prophet, someone who creates to deliver deeper spiritual messages. When did you first sense that your creativity wasn't just talent but a divine assignment?
Well, I mean, I think inklings of it have always been there, but I would say probably within this last 3 or 4 years is really when I started to kind of identify with this whole concept of the artist prophet. There were just a lot was going on in my life. Some really difficult things were going on at home, and I was kind of struggling with a lot of things, and so inside of all of that, I just really needed joy. I needed hope. I needed to understand God deeper. Um, and so as I'm kind of journeying through all of that, I found, different truths as I was kind of examining myself, looking into the scriptures. And the more I learned about God, the more I felt really obligated to convey the truths that I was finding and feeling. So that's when I really started to have a sense of calling about it. Uh, and because I kind of think in, systems thinking and integrated thinking, it's really easy for me to kind of get big pictures of how to convey things. So then I kind of started thinking, okay, well, how can I use this? So that's kind of where it got started.
Yeah, like I think many listeners might feel a tug on their spirit, but don't know how to name it. And I think your experience could help them recognize their own quiet calling.
Sure.
And
Well, I will say too. I'm sorry. Shouldn't say. You know, as I was getting into this, this was definitely not something, where it was just this big epiphany moment. This was just really, really subtle, like over and over again, like I've got to say this or I've got to say this. And like so little small messages, like I kind of kept getting those cues. I don't know what else to call them. But like that, that there was something to say that I needed to communicate it. I just didn't always know how. But eventually, when I kinda started to see, like, reoccurring themes start to develop, then I'm like, "Okay, now I kind of know what the message is gonna be." So, to those listening, I would say you don't necessarily have to look for those epiphany moments. You can be an artist prophet, and it can kind of develop over time. So just, stay aware of that and just be open to what might come in the future.
yes. And also, you have mentioned that the world often prefers softer, feel good spirituality. Have you ever felt praised to dilute your message, and how did you resist that temptation?
Oh, all the time, all the time. Uh, well, because I mean, part of the issue, at least for me, with what I'm doing as a writer, if you look at that just from a business standpoint, publishers, they're always looking for what's going to sell. They want to make money. And so with all of these messages that we have in culture about, you do things quickly, you can be independent, like all of that contributes to people really wanting something to consume very quickly. They don't want necessarily things that are very hard to understand. So publishers, when they look at messages, they're really looking at, can this make us a profit? So the work that I'm doing is very much not in that vein. It is very much, you have to do the deeper work, you have to face the tough things. So it makes it more difficult for me to go that traditional route. And it'd be very easy for me to say, well, I can just dilute this, like you said, but then that wouldn't be my message anymore. It would be what the world is asking for, but not what I need to say. So I really wanna differentiate that because sometimes what you have to say, like, you just have to learn to package it in a different way that's accessible. But I would definitely say don't just get your message and don't just revise your message to what's gonna sell because that's kind of abandoning the message itself.
Yeah, I think this tension between authenticity and acceptance is something most creators battle even outside the spiritual realm.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Also, walking this path must require a certain emotional resilience. What personal practices or boundaries help you to stay anchored when the weight of the message feels really heavy?
Well, I'm really glad you brought up the idea of boundaries because I think if you come into this artist prophecy, you will come to understand exactly what the message is, and you will have to draw boundaries for that. You will have to ask yourself, what is it that I am saying, and am I really willing to defend it? And you have to defend that message. There will be times, like I said, am I going to dilute that message or will I really stand for it? There will be parts of it where maybe people aren't comfortable with parts of it and they want you to take that out. And like you really have to get comfortable saying no and say, I'm not going to change it. The message is what it is. And that doesn't mean that you are not aware of the difficulties that people are facing. Like you want to be, you use your emotional intelligence there. You're not just disregarding what people are saying, but the truth of the message you have to stick with. So, when we are talking about being authentic and delivering that message in a good way, to be an artist prophet, you have to be kind of stuck to that message. So I don't really know if that answers your question though.
Yes, it's really powerful the way you say it. And also powerful to hear how grounding rituals can transform the way we carry responsibilities. And also, every artist prophet faces both inner transformation and outer reaction. Which external responses surprised you the most, like support or resistance, and how did they shape your journey?
Well, as I was just saying, the world can be very harsh sometimes, depending on what the message is. Um, so I was not really expecting. Oh, I mean, to a degree, I wanted people to accept the message, but I had to really understand, and get into the heart of what I had said earlier that like, why do they want like the superficial stuff when, there's so many people hurting, there are so many things that we do need to face that we could address. Like, why do we just kind of brush that under the rug? And I really had to like face that and come to terms with that and ask myself what I was willing to deal with in that, like, how much am I willing to fight? Knowing that that's kind of the reality of it. But the thing that really helped me was to understand that even if the majority of people are not ready to hear it the way that I am, some are. And that's my audience. Like, if you are ready, I will talk to you. Like any day of the week, I will listen and we can communicate. And for people who are not ready, maybe you will be. And that becomes my responsibility as the artist prophet to say, what way do you speak? How do you communicate? And how can I translate this for you in a way that still adheres to my message, but that's more palatable for you? That's more, well, maybe palatable isn't the right word, but just that you can understand it. Like it's going to resonate with you, like it's going to stick. It's going to hit with you differently so that you can take it in. That's my responsibility when I run into that. But that's really helped me as I've tried to do this work.
Yeah, I think sometimes the world reflects truth back to us we didn't expect, and your story shows that growth doesn't always look gentle.
Right.
Your work spans writing, music, devotionals, and leadership support. How do you discern which medium is right for a particular spiritual message?
This is where it's up to me, I will just honestly say it's kind of weird, but getting back to that way that I think and the systems and the integrated way of thinking, the way and this is not true for everybody, like, every artist prophet is gonna have their own way of doing things, and there's no right or wrong way, okay? I do wanna emphasize that. But for me, when I work the way that my brain operates, I kind of see all of everything at once. Everything kind of spins like a mandala. So I am seeing or I'm hearing the audio in my head. I'm seeing the images of what could be take place. So it's kind of like I'm seeing the entire campaign of what could be. all at the same time. And then I kind of take it to the different platforms, whether it's LinkedIn or whatever it is, where am I going with the message and say what's working there. So if people are doing a lot of videos, okay, well, the video's already in my head. I can pull that, but you develop all of it and then you just place it where it's appropriate. So that's kind of how I approach it.
I think many creators who wrestle with the question of medium and your insight could free them to trust innovation over convention.
I do cut there's something there is something to like if you are good in a certain medium, like if videos are saying, okay, well, you don't necessarily have to develop all of the rest of it. You can work with people who maybe that's their gift. But I think that you can find a way to speak in what works. If that works for you, then go after that. Like you do not have to create the entire campaign. You just have to find a platform where what you can do, the way that you speak resonates and that it's working. So you don't have to be everywhere. You don't have to do everything. The message just needs to be clear in whatever way that you are communicating.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. I think you say that so beautifully. And
Thank you.
has there been a time when the message coming through you clashed with your personal comfort zone? And also, how did you navigate that tension?
That's a really good question. I would say there certainly have been like, I think the message itself is kind of like it's always kind of been in my core. There wasn't anything about the message itself that, like, I really resisted, but having to do the work of actually getting out there and say, like, because I have, like I said, a lot of tough things going in my life, and just getting the confidence to say, "This is a message that I can convey." That's where I kinda got stuck. 'Cause I knew how to do it, I knew I could develop the message, but I just didn't know, like, should I? And, like, I had to really ask myself, essentially, like, "What is this worth? What am I worth? Like, can I communicate this message?" If you are familiar with Christian scriptures, it's kind of like Moses where he tells God appears to him in the burning bush and tells him to go to Egypt to free Israel, and Moses basically said, "Well, who am I to do that?" And that's kind of the conflict that I had, like, I felt this call to do it and say it, and I knew exactly what I was supposed to do, but I just didn't know if I was the right person for the job, so that was really, what I had to get past.
Yes. And has your message changed as you have changed? Like, what part of your calling now feels different from when you first began?
I would say that kind of embracing this whole artist prophet idea, I've really gotten to know myself better because, again, like you have to draw those boundaries. You have to know exactly what the values underneath the message are. So that's kind of really grounded me and stabilized me. I know myself better because of examining the messages over and over. Like you've got to communicate those over and over again. Um, so I've developed good boundaries. I have the values that I know that I'm supposed to defend. Um, but I would say I'm still, like I said, kind of struggling, to get out into different platforms, am I the right person for that? So that's still there. But I definitely would say I'm discovering skills I didn't have. I'm being more willing to try different things to get the message out. So I guess I would kind of say like I'm more open than I used to be. And I'm more confident to just say because I know that the message is what I'm supposed to do, like, the calling feels secure now more than it did when I just had kind of pieces of it. I think I have enough pieces of it now that I can kind of structure it better, and I know a little bit better from the business background of how to get that out because of that. Does that make sense?
Yes, I think this will really help people release the fear that their calling must stay rigid or constant. This is a wonderful thing that you said. And also, when you think about future, what impact do you hope your work makes on someone who may never heard or like never know your name?
Well, the message that I personally have as an artist prophet, well, and I come from the Christian tradition, so I'll just acknowledge that. But the message that I want to really get across is that any disconnection that you feel to yourself, any disconnection that you feel to God and joy, like you can restore that. That is the core of the message that I'm trying to get out to people that you are not lost, you're not unworthy. Like those are core tenets of what I'm trying to say. And I think if people can hear that and just get some encouragement from that to say, like, "I see you." Like, even if the world spins and it's chaos, like, we can slow down, we can see each other, like, you can connect. There's a writer called Henry Nouwen, and he has a book called The Wounded Healer, and I talk about it all the time. Oh, one of the core things that he says in that book is that everybody just needs at least one person to see who they really are. If they have just one person, they can withstand anything. So I just wanna know that I can be that one person. I want people to know that I can be that one person. If they need somebody, God can be there for them, like, that like, we can make it. Does that make sense?
Yes, that's really beautiful. And like, how to distinguish between inspiration that is spiritually led and ideas that are simply clever or trendy?
So, I would say when I'm looking at, well, I guess it comes back to, the trends sell. They really do. And they are very easy to parrot and repeat. Like, you'll see them all over social media feeds, and they don't really change much. Everybody kind of says in the same way. But when you have a real message, that is different, that is deeper, that's not superficial, that's when I think, like, it just feels different. It looks different in the way that it's portrayed. And I think people see that. So when you are on social media or you're just talking to somebody and you're giving your message as an artist prophet, people can tell the difference between something that they've heard and seen before and something that just strikes them because it just hits different. And it's something that they need to hear. So I would say that initial, like, emotional resonance that you get with the message, if it's just like, yeah, I can scroll past that, like, that's the trend. But if it's something that you need to hear, like, you'll stop. You'll stop and you'll think about it and you'll remember it and you might save the post. You know what I mean? And you'll come back to it.
Yes, that is so beautiful. And like, when someone tells you that like your work transformed them, how do you personally hold that responsibility without absorbing the weight of expectations?
That's a good question too. Um, I think some of it is knowing that as an artist prophet, you are serving. Like, it's never about you. It's never about you. You have to think bigger than yourself and say, whatever I need to convey this message, however the person needs to hear it, I will receive that, from God, from my higher power. He can take the responsibility. He is going to guide me through that so that I don't unnecessarily make a really bad mistake with what I'm saying. Like, he will give me the right words. He'll let me convey them in the right way so that I am exercising care within what I'm doing. You always have to think about, what the results are going to be, and how the potential behind what you're doing. But I do think that, if you recognize that he's guiding what you are trying to do, then that kind of takes a little bit of the weight off because you know that he's got your back. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. And I think uh, creators often struggles to receive gratitude without feeling pressured, but yet I think your approach offers a healthy model. Like, it's so beautiful. And
Thank you.
this is a wonderful conversation with you. And if after this my listeners want to connect with you, then what's the best way?
Sure. I would say first to go to my profile on LinkedIn. You can just look for Wanda Thibodeaux. I have a featured post on there that basically shows every other place that you can connect with me. But you can also check out my author site, which is wandathibodeaux.com. Or if you really want to check out the faith rating that I do, you can check out faithfulontheclock.com. That's related to the podcast that I do, which is Faithful on the Clock.
Yes, and I will make sure to attach all these details and links below so that the listeners can find them easily and get in touch with you. And thank you, Wanda, for opening the door to a realm where creativity becomes revelation and artistry becomes service. And,
Thank you so much.
and to all my listeners, may this conversation inspire you to honor the message placed within. However challenging, however countercultural, however demanding it may be, let today be the moment you choose depth over ease, truth over trend, and courage over comfort. Your voice matters, your calling matters, and the world needs the fullness of what you only can bring. Thank you.